It's not about being a fractional chief revenue officer. Nobody cares about that. They don't care about that stuff. They care specifically about their problem and how quickly they can solve it.
Your content sucks because every piece of content needs to fit in that framework and ICP, and it needs to be justified.
What works for you is the thing that you need to lean into. Don't be someone or something that you're not comfortable in doing.
You do have thoughts, and those thoughts shape the work that you do and what you bring and how you deliver to your client that's different than everybody else. Hey, Dean, let me ask you a question. When you think of me, like in terms of social media or anything else, what do you think of when you think of me? Like, what jumps out at you that people know about me?
Yeah. Beyond the Superman hats, I think of you as a content person, a video content expert. That's what I think of when I think of T-Bird D'Souza. That's where my brain goes every time.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And it's a wonderful thing. But for so many people out there, they struggle and they say, and I know you've heard people say it all the time too, like, my content does nothing and it doesn't actually move anybody and I don't know what to create, or I created stuff and it was bad, and they have all of these different things. And I bet you if you asked them that question, or if you went and looked at their social media, you couldn't answer it as succinctly as you just answered it for me.
Yep.
Let's talk about that today.
All right. Great topic. Let's do it.
Yeah. I think it's time that we have this conversation with you guys, because we've talked about thought leadership, right? We talk about networking, we talk about all this stuff, but look, when the rubber meets the road, y'all need clients. And you need that process in which people move through your system. Right? And so, Dean, let's start with you to tell us, like, what are some of the things that you do, and then we can reverse them.
Yeah. Well, let me share a story, and then I'll ask you a question. Obviously, our audience, fractional executives, they all want to land that 2, 3, 4 high ticket clients, do great work, not have to get off the grind, right? Just do their thing with these clients. Yeah, they all look and sound the same online. Let's pick on COOs, for example, fractional COOs. They all say the same thing. They're all about process and efficiency and blah, blah, blah. And they all work with small business. Talk to CFOs, fractional CFOs. They all say the same thing. Financial strategy and blah, blah, blah. Nobody stands for anything. Nobody stands for anything. And they're all struggling for the same scraps in the marketplace. So for me, what I think about is, and how I position my fractional work and my consulting work is specifically, what kind of clients do I want to work with?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of clients do I excel in getting results for?
Mm-hmm.
Getting really clear on that. Of course, that's defining our ideal client profile.
Mm-hmm.
Then stepping back and saying, how do they think about the problem they're trying to solve?
Yes.
And I position myself right there.
Yes.
Right? It's not about being a fractional chief revenue officer. Nobody cares about that. They don't care about that stuff. They care specifically about their problem and how quickly they can solve it. And so they're looking for people that are speaking their language and saying, this dude gets it. And then all of a sudden, all the other sales and marketing people, they all sort of dwindle. And the person that's speaking their language to them, is what it feels like, rises to the top. Absolutely. So that's how I position myself. That's how I encourage fractionals and consultants to position themselves. But most get it wrong.
Absolutely. Most get it very, very wrong because, like you said, it's one, you go out and look at what other people are creating and you duplicate because you figure that, well, that's what people are creating, right? Yep. Or two, you go to AI tools and you say, I'm a this, I need a great content, and it gives you what you think is novel, right? And it sounds great until you put it out and it gets crickets because you realize, oh, it's really cliche.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or it's not speaking to my ideal customer, and where, as you said so eloquently, where their pain is, right? And so we take that and we layer on top, and this is not process now, we layer on top the concept of being a campaign driven enterprise. And what that means is recognizing that you are a thought leader. You do have thoughts, and those thoughts shape the work that you do and what you bring and how you deliver to your client that's different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what makes you a thought leader. You are this unique thing. You've created this unique thing. Some people call it a signature solution. Some people call it a proprietary process. Some people call it a USP. Whatever it is that you call it, you have your thing. We're going to call it a framework. Okay. You have this overarching framework, and that framework is built on several pillars. Okay. It's built on several pillars, and sometimes those pillars are things that you do or things that you believe
Yep.
that affect what you do. Either way. And then those pillars have sub-pillars. Okay. This is now where rubber meets the road, because those sub-pillars solve specific problems for your client. But they don't solve the big problem that they're having. They're solving really small, specific problems that are part of the bigger problem.
Yep.
Okay. And it's the combination of solving all of those that makes up your framework, that makes you so great, that makes you the thought leader that you are. Okay. So we have an ICP. In the ICP, ideal customer profile, lends itself to what problems someone has. We have that. Then we look at what we've created, our proprietary process, our signature solution, our framework, the pillars, and then the sub-pillars. And we've attached those sub-pillars to pain points from the ICP.
Yep.
Okay. That's step one, y'all. And if you haven't done that, and if you don't understand that, your content sucks.
Yep.
You didn't come here for us to sugarcoat it. Okay? Your content sucks. Because every piece of content needs to fit in that framework and ICP, and it needs to be justified. Even the personal content, it needs to be justified. Okay? So now that we know that, I call it a campaign-driven enterprise.
Mm.
But we haven't talked about campaigns yet, right, Dean?
Yep.
So we look at campaigns, one at the yearly, then at the quarterly, and then at the monthly level. Now, what is a campaign? A campaign is something that you're driving someone to. It could be a lead magnet. It could be an event. It could be anything that you're driving them to because they have interest in it, because it solves a problem for it and for them. In other words, it's attached to a sub-pillar in your framework, which attaches to a pain point that they have, which is why they'd be interested, because it solves their problem. So Dean, for you do a monthly webinar, right? We do a monthly web class. Somebody else may have a GPT that they give away.
Yeah. So lead magnet, a download, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Okay. Tons of different things. But the point is, there's that thing or event that you're driving people to. And once they get that, then they're in a different campaign that takes them to the next thing.
Yep.
And so if we're at a sub-pillar, now the next thing is a pillar. And then up to the framework. Okay. And we create content that helps move them to the sub-pillars that we're focused on. That's why you know that about me so clearly.
Yep. Exactly. And I would add a little more color to the concept of campaign as well for those
Yeah.
that aren't marketers in the audience. A campaign is nothing more than a sequence of intentional activities with a designed outcome. And if it's getting people to an event, get them to download a thing, getting on a call, whatever that goal is, that doesn't really matter. But it's that sequence of intentional activities. And so if you step back and you think, okay, I'm going to run a webinar. I'm going to promote it on LinkedIn. I'm going to use my email list. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Great. Just posting that you're hosting a webinar isn't a sequence of intentional activities. That's one action. So you have to think about the journey your audience needs to go through.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to see your stuff. They need to see a video and they're like, all right, Atiba knows his stuff. Oh, okay, he's got a webinar, web class. But if I just hit you with a cold invite to the web class, they may not be ready to sign up, or they'll just click yes and they won't show. So think about that journey that they have to go through. So you build credibility, trust, and a relationship. So they move to the next step. That's a really important aspect of a campaign.
Absolutely. And great insight. And so let me give a story to illustrate that. So we just did one of these for a client just recently. Okay. They wanted to do a quarterly event, right? And so, all right. So we're a campaign-driven enterprise. You want to do a quarterly event? Well, what was a monthly event? And we even sometimes go down to the weekly. So with her, we went down to the weekly. Okay. And so she did a weekly AMA with an expert in her industry. Now, when we started, we knew there were 6 weeks before her event. And she had lined up 5 experts to do this weekly AMA with, right? But we didn't just go out and say, hey, so-and-so is doing an AMA with so-and-so, show up. No,
Right.
no, y'all. That's not how you run a campaign. What we did instead was at the beginning, even though we already had the 5 people booked, we said, hey, so-and-so is starting a series of AMAs, and we would like you to vote on who she should interview. Here's a list of 5 people. Guess where that list of 5 people came from? Right?
Right.
Then, when all 5 people got votes, we were able to say, since you were all interested, we're having them all. But now we know people voted and people want to come. We know who wants to come. Then every week we put out a post and said, hey, you asked for this person to come and it's an AMA. What questions do you want to ask them? And people flooded with questions to ask. Then when the event came, which was free, people showed up to hear their question get answered. When they showed up, she told them everything that they talked about is great, and that's this side of the business. But in order to execute this side of the business, you need this other side of the business, which I'm going to be doing a paid webinar for in 4 weeks. Sign up here. Campaigns. And so now all those people who signed up to be at that AMA, if whether they purchased or not to go to the webinar in those rest of the weeks, we're now sending emails to them. Hey, register for the webinar. The $99, I forget how much it was, $99 webinar, how much ever it was. And then at the webinar, she told everybody, I'm going to be doing a full day training live in Phoenix. Sign up for only, I think it was $1,500 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she got people to sign up. That's the process, y'all.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I want the audience to take away a few things from what you just described. And at the very beginning, you immediately created engagement and ownership of the free event by asking your audience for input, right? Vote on the speakers, share your questions. The likelihood, that when you run a webinar, just for our audience's sake, you're going to get between 25 and 30% show up rate from RSVP to show up rate. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it could be higher. But just if you're in that 30% range, you're doing okay. There's room for improvement, but you're doing okay. I don't know what the show up rate was for your client's event, but I would imagine it's way higher.
Way
it's
higher.
Probably 50% or more.
There was.
Because the audience is engaged. They're part of the event. They're not just showing up to the event. Huge difference in mindset, right?
Absolutely.
They're motivated to show up. So as you put together your campaigns, think about how you can engage the audience more than just an invite. How can you make them part of the event?
Yeah.
It will change their engagement completely.
It does. And it changes their relationship with you, right? And see, people love to buy and hate to be sold.
Yep.
Okay. And so if you're just saying, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing, all you're doing is selling, and people hate that. Mm-hmm. But they want to buy. We just have to give them the option to buy on their terms and their way, where they don't feel like they're buying, if you will, right? And then the sale is easy.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
I mean,
it is.
So much so that at her in-person event, she closed over half the room.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. And don't get stuck on audience. Don't get stuck on an event. If you don't want to do public speaking, you don't want to do a webinar, you don't have to do that. No. Your campaign could lead to a paid consultation, a free consultation, a system checkup, or
an audit,
an audit, whatever it may be, right? Know what the offer will be, know where you're headed with that, excuse me, because that will color how you present the content you push through the campaign, how you engage with the audience. But I just want to make sure everybody does webinars and stuff like that right now. They do work, but it's not for everyone. I was on our twice a month live call with my coaching community in the Fractional Launchpad, and we talked about content and thought leadership this morning. And I asked the members, what's working for you right now? And one of my fractional CFO members said she's doing public speaking, and she's a very talented CFO, but not the most outgoing personality. And she got the courage to get on a stage and speak in front of business owners. And she closed a piece of business out of it. She closed a client out of it. But my message to the rest of the members were, you don't have to speak. That doesn't have to be the thing. It can be whatever you want it to be. So what works for you is the thing that you need to lean into. Don't be someone or something that you're not comfortable in doing. I'm not saying don't get out of your comfort zone, but as you start to think about campaigns and connection with your audience, come up with a thing, an offer, a way to interact that's comfortable with you and will align with your audience's need. Yes. So I think it's really important.
No, that's a really great point, because we can sometimes seem like we're talking only about events, and it's not the case at all, right? Mm-hmm. This works no matter what you're doing, right? You're taking someone on a journey and you're solving their problems. Yep. And that's key. And the second key is the framework. Understanding the framework of what you're offering and the different pillars and the sub-pillars. But Dean, what's the absolute number one thing they must have in order for this to work?
Yeah. The foundation for all of this is understanding your ideal client profile, your ICP. If you've listened to Atiba and I for more than 5 minutes on any other episode, we've talked about this stuff because it is the bedrock of everything we do. So there are lots of ways you can go about creating an ICP. You can just Google it. You can chat GPT it. You can ask a friend. You can do all this stuff. But most of the time, what you get from that generic activity is a generic output, right? Because it has to be unique to you and your offer and the audience. So make sure you spend time there, because that will lead to how you build your offers.
Yes.
How you package your stuff, how you position yourself as a thought leader. And even then, what event type, what thing are you going to offer? Is it an event, download, or whatever? I know you've got a methodology that you use, Atiba, to help people with. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So, I've been fortunate. I've been building ideal customer profiles now, y'all, since 2002. So I built a lot for a lot of different businesses, and we've got that down into a process. And I would love to share that with you, and I would love for you to be able to go through that. And it starts with, y'all ready for this? This is the campaign, y'all. It starts with you coming to one of our free web classes. So you can go to contentcoach.social /web class. And we'll put a link in the description down below as well. But you can go to any one of our monthly web classes, which will get you started on the process of creating your ideal customer. Listen, this is the key. I had a guy call me this week who just went through our program, and he said, "Oh my gosh, it's working. I've got people calling and I'm signing clients." And it all started when I changed and understood who my ICP really was, and then started creating content that matched their pain points.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
key.
awesome. That's awesome. So get some help, right? Get some help. Don't try and figure this out on your own. You will not be where you need to be in 60 days from now if you try and do it on your own. Jump on Atiba's web class. It will speed up the process and the journey to success. I know personally it will work for you.
Well, y'all, you know who he is. He's Dean. I'm Atiba. We're the Fractional Pros, and this is the Fractional Pros podcast. We'll see you next time.